Hello, welcome back to another video. This is day 16 of 30 days of JavaScript challenge on LeetCode. And if you haven't subscribed to this challenge, please subscribe. It does help a lot. And do consider taking the membership. Let's start. So, promise time limit. Let's start this. This is a medium challenge, so I'm assuming it's going to be fun. Okay. Given an asynchronous function fn, this is fn function, and a time limit t milliseconds, return a new time limited version of the input function. Okay. Function takes arguments provided to the time limited function. Okay. This function will take these arguments. Okay. Now, if the function completes within the limit of t milliseconds, the time limited function should resolve with the result. Okay. Okay. So there is a function, there is a time. Okay. And then there is some extra step. Okay. What happens is, if within this time t, within let's say 100 milliseconds, this function executes, that's great, it is successfully resolved. But if this function has taken more than t milliseconds, then we should say time limit exceeded error. Okay, and this is actually the implementation of a lot of testing frameworks and even the async tasks and all. Just because if this time limit exceeded is a common error, okay, in various frameworks. So I think that this problem is related to that original implementation, especially in test cases actually. Because in test cases we do use times a lot, timings, milliseconds, and all those things a lot of times. So let's see. What they are saying is this. It should reject with this. Okay, got it. So we have to create a new promise. Okay, and again, because it is promised, there will be resolve and reject. Inside this, we'll do two things. One is, because obviously t milliseconds, that means we have to work with the set timeout somehow. So let's create that set timeout. Okay, and whatever that it will do, we'll see that later. Okay, in that, use t as the milliseconds. What we have to do here, if this t milliseconds has passed, then we have to give this error as a reject. Okay, so we'll use this reject from the promise, return reject, and in that pass time limit yes. And the other one is this function. In this, they have mentioned that we should pass the arguments. They did this provided take arguments. Function takes arguments, so we'll pass the arguments dot 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 args. Function completes this time limit function, resolve with the result. We have to resolve it. So to resolve it, actually, yeah, we have passed this dot then resolve reject. Let's see. I'm just confused at one point, okay, but that confusion is over. So now I can explain you. That's why I was not explaining you correctly. Now this function can resolve, like it can be successful or can reject, which is failure. Okay, now I won't use failure and successful term. Whenever failure is there, associate that with reject, and whenever success is there, resolve should be understood. Okay, so now what I was thinking was whether there will be a conflict between two different rejects. Okay, but there won't be. Okay, because what happens is that once we reject this, okay, for example, 10 milliseconds have passed, which is the value of t. This function is not finished yet. So this set timeout will get executed. As soon as this get executed, this will reject time limit exceeded. Now, as soon as this gets rejected, because this promise is rejected, this will never get executed after that. Okay, because even if this function, let's say, finishes at the 11th second, 11th microsecond, and this was 10 microsecond, even if it finishes at 11th microsecond, it won't work just because we have already rejected the value. So it will reject only once. Okay, and that's where I was actually confused, like whether it will reject twice or only once. And this one is, for example, as I mentioned, the time is 10 milliseconds. Now, what if this function finishes at 50 second? It can finish in two conditions. Either it has successfully finished, which is resolve, or reject. So in either case, we will have to use them. Okay. And let me confirm this actually. Does reject works only once in a promise JavaScript? I think it is yes, because promises only fire once. A promise is created, initialized, and settled. Once settled, can never be unsettled and resettled. Calling, resolve, and reject a second, third, fourth. There is no operation. Got it. So even if this one calls it second time, it won't work. So let's submit, and it beats 6% only. Okay, let me submit again. That's way too bad. We are almost on the last part. Okay, it is their algorithmic problem. I don't know what they are doing. Let's see some solutions. Actually, let's see the best one. Submissions, this one. What's the best one? They are using set timeout ID. Okay, they are clearing it also, which is actually nice. This is a very common thing. Like if someone is using a set timeout, we should always have a habit of using it as a ID so that we can always clear it out. So this one is nice. I like this one. And then it is almost the same. They are just trying catching, but in this case, I don't think try catch is important. Yeah, they are trying catching because they've used await and all. That's why. Otherwise, it is not important. Let's see some other solutions. What is this? Accepted code sample. Let's go to, okay. So in this, they've used original function promise. Okay. Timeout promise. Okay, they have used race, which is another concept. Let actually that promise was a hint. Let me try that. So what happens is I'll rename that same thing. The our code was something like this at the start, right? There was nothing inside this. So what they're saying is your function is a promise, right? That's why we have used this resolve and reject. That's one. And this can also be a promise. Okay, and then set a race condition between to this. If first one finishes, we give the result. If second one finishes, we give the result. The race condition in promise works in such a way that even if there are 5, 10, 15 promises, if you use them under race condition, in a race, there can be only one winner, right? Technically, in a race, there can be only one winner. So even if there are a lot of promises, only one will, whichever one which gets executed first will be successful and everything else will get rejected. So let's use that actually. I need two promises. So the first one is this only. We are not using then because we don't want to resolve or reject it. So const original promise equals to function. Okay. And second one is create our own promise. So set const timeout promise equals to new promise. It will take two values, resolve and reject. Sorry, their arguments. So resolve and reject. And what do we have to do? We have to do the same thing actually. Okay, and we can use reject. We don't need to use resolve. We are not using resolve anywhere, so you can convert that to underscore actually. And now let's return. So we here also we are returning a promise. Here also we will return a promise only. But in this case, we have two different promises, and whichever one finishes first will get returned. So now we don't have to worry about the other one not getting executed. This should work. And this is actually much nice. Sorry, I have not used race. Okay, timeout error. Let me check. New promise. Actually, no new promise. I think it should not be not new because we are not creating a new promise. Yes. I wrote new incorrectly because we are not creating any new promise. We are just using one of these, whichever one gets finished first. So that's it. Let's see its implementation, its accuracy. Again, 19% only. Let me resubmit and see. Okay, fine enough. So either one is fine. Do let me know your thoughts if you have any other solutions. There might be actually, but I think I will have to keep this in my mind that if there are multiple promises and you want only one of them as winner, try to use race condition. I will have to keep that in my mind now. So that's it. Thank you. Bye bye.